Welcome in, post-game World Cup date after the first World Cup semifinal. United States advances 2-1. Game had a little bit of everything, and we've got a bunch of stuff to break down. So, I'm Jason. Jessica's here. She is alive.
Just about.
There were questions. We're on the patio at Hampton and Hudson, which was packed, by the way. Very cool to see, not really a soccer pub packed for a game like this on a Tuesday. Very, very cool.
During the workday.
Yeah, and the game lived up to the hype. I mean, it was everything you would want in a World Cup semifinal. Back and forth, you've got some referee controversy because it wouldn't be this World Cup if you didn't have that. VAR gets involved. We've got a lot of that to talk about. We have lineup stuff to talk about, and we're waiting to see what Jill Ellis says to the media, because U.S. media were told to ask Ellis after the match about the Rapinoe absence in the starting lineup. Fox reported that it was a hamstring issue at halftime, according to their sources. I haven't seen that officially confirmed yet. Both teams had some surprising lineup changes, and hamstrings could have played a role in both.
Yeah, firstly, I can't believe I'm doing this. It's taken some nuts to come out here and talk. Obviously, it's heartbreaking as an England fan. I think, honestly, I would be less emotionally distraught had we been beaten 3-0. Because it's one of those where this game had such a roller coaster. It was, 1 minute you're feeling low, the next you're feeling high, and so many near misses, near chances, and that's what just leaves it so deflated afterwards. You have to see the positives, but it's hard to in a moment like this. You say hamstrings, for England, goalkeeper change. And I don't think that Barsi makes the saves for the goals, but I think she inspires potentially better defense in front of her. Telford, other Carly, is a good goalkeeper, and she showed it. She made a couple of good saves, but she's not the goalkeeper that they're used to. She's only played one ever World Cup game before this. It was against Argentina, where she wasn't really tested, and nor was the back line truly tested.
Right.
And for that reason, you have to wonder how confident the back line was in front of her. And what makes me wonder, again, I don't think the physical save would have been done, but would our two centre backs have been more organised with a goalkeeper behind them that potentially is giving them more instruction or trusting them more?
Yeah, the second goal, I think, really was a defensive breakdown where Alex Morgan makes the run in behind, and both center backs are up high, and it's Stokes, the left back, who's trying to get in and defend, and that's not the situation you're looking for. That feels like a goalkeeper change has a huge impact on that. Thanks, ATL UTD fan number 1 chiming in. Rapinoe was just interviewed, stated she was day-to-day with a minor strain. I don't know why they couldn't say that ahead of time. I don't know if it's just you're trying to play mental games a little bit.
Yeah, I think it was a nice surprise for them to be able to throw on England.
Yeah.
England, I think, planned ahead of the game that they would be facing Rapinoe. We talked about it this morning about the sort of game plan we'd need to have to sort of silence Rapinoe and Heath, and
right.
I think we structured our defensive line around that, dropping Greenwood and going with Stokes ahead of that, and in the end, without Rapinoe, it was a different challenge.
Yeah, completely different kind of game. Kristen Press came in and delivered. And
she is so freaking fast.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous.
The thing about it for Jill Ellis, it's really interesting because I think we always question what she's going to do in these moments. Because 2015, it almost felt like she kind of backed into the lineup that worked, that ended up winning the trophy. This is another one where if it's an injury that's causing it, you kind of have to make that change. And there were people immediately when this lineup came out who were justifying it with, well, Rapinoe doesn't play defense, so that's why you make the change. I don't think you make this change at all if Megan Rapinoe's healthy, but it might have helped.
And I agree. I think it was almost an accidental improvement for the US. Like I said to Jason earlier during the game, I would have rather been facing Rapinoe. She doesn't offer as much defensively. She doesn't have that, I don't want to call it work ethic, but not that sort of mind set to work back and act defensively. And I think it would have left us with more space over the top than the change that was made. And honestly, the deliveries by Press and Press's speed made a huge difference. And if we'd have known Press was starting ahead of time, potentially we play Greenwood. Because over the top, Stokes was slow. And it didn't look great, and that then led to Millie Bright being exposed, which everyone saw her meg. It happened because Stokes was beaten first and put her in a one-on-one defensive situation, which she's not great at.
No.
That's not her game. Her game is heading balls, clearing the ball sloppily but effectively, and that, I think the US slipped into a lucky one, and you know what, Rapinoe day to day, I don't know if she starts in the final with how Press made such a difference today.
Yeah, you've got possibilities now and things that you might not have truly considered. Where do we want to start digging into this? Because there's so many little talking points out of it. The U.S. gets the early goal that we talked about. England couldn't really concede. But England came back and got one back fairly quickly.
Yeah, I mean, we literally said this morning, my words were, the US has scored in every game in the first 15 minutes. We cannot afford to do that because it starts playing mental games. For the US, it gives them that confidence and that boost that they're, okay, this is just another one of these games, we've got through these. And for England, it's like, well, crap, now we're always on an uphill mountain. I do think we responded well, but you're still in a 0-1 game, and you're only always going to be tying it with that first goal, whereas it would have been a go-ahead goal for us. It would have been all the difference. If the US were cagey going into it, which I think they felt like they had a real challenge, that sort of calmed their nerves, and instead it put more pressure on England, and we were always chasing from then on out.
It's such a crazy game. I mean, I feel like you get those 3 goals fairly quick in the first half, and in the first half, everybody's a little stunned to see it out. And we wondered at halftime, what changes are we going to see? Paris slid wider in the second half, but not truly as the right winger. That's going to be the biggest question for me with Phil Neville, is why not Paris starting on the right wing? Why didn't Fran Kirby start? That move really weakened England, in my opinion.
Yeah, I know Fran hasn't had the best World Cup at times, but I think she provides an energy and a creative mindset that has been really effective for England, particularly linking up with Ellen White with the interchanging 1-2 passes, and I think we missed that early on in the first half. When it comes to the moving of Paris, that was just mind-baffling to me. We spoke and we spoke and we spoke days before this game, today, this morning, about how much of a great battle and overload it was going to be for England with Bronze and Paris on that right-hand side against Dunn. And yes, Dunn's again had a great game, but she wasn't tested at the same rate as we thought she was going to be. And I think by not having Paris there, Bronze was less effective because the link-up play in front of her wasn't nearly as strong. And that killed us. I really think it killed us in the first half because there were times when Bronze wanted to bomb on, but she didn't have the same support. And I really don't remember Paris being on the ball in the first half. I don't remember seeing her on the TV screen. And that's a problem when one of your most effective, skillful and dangerous players that would have tired out Dunn, really made her work, wasn't there on the field.
Second half was really interesting because I want to make something clear. I've seen all the different talk out there about the game and all the different hot takes and funny memes and all that. The second half, I feel like England was the better team by a large margin. And that's scary if you're a U.S. fan in terms of being dominant in the final. I think what Phil Neville's done with this team and the way this team plays, he asked them to be brave playing out of the back, and they were so good at playing out of the back and through the middle. And it just felt like they were carving the U.S. up through the middle of the field and creating opportunities. And then when the U.S. dropped the 5 in the back, it was even more carving up through the middle because it's 2 midfielders.
And there was such an overload in the midfield, and that's when I felt like the momentum was all England. We saw a carving pass for the goal that was eventually pulled back for offside. Those were the balls that were being done, and I think most of them were being played by Walsh. And we were getting that momentum with these splitting passes, and it was very easy to part the U.S. defense, and that's something that I think should be a concern to the U.S. Again, I'm not criticizing America too much. They won the game.
No, I am. I mean, it was...
The splitting passes were very easy, and look, again, VAR, yes, it makes the correct decision. There is no, marginally. It's, yes, she's offside. She is offside. It hurts. It hurts that it's that close. It hurts that it's inches. But at the end of the day, she's offside. But the US has to look. They got lucky as far as I'm concerned because there was no deliberate step to take her offside.
No.
It was just the split-second timing and an easy slot in for Ellen. And I don't understand why Walsh was taken off because we saw 2 or 3 of those passes. And with 12 minutes in the game, I think roughly when she got taken off, it was too soon.
Yeah,
it wasn't the right call.
I completely agree. Unless she needed to come off due to injury or what have you, it didn't make a whole lot of sense. Let's get into the referee stuff. So the offside, the England goal brought back. There's really not much to even say. I mean, offside is offside. It sucks.
It sucks, and it sucks that it's that close, but we can't complain. I'm not going to complain.
Yeah.
VAR gets things right, and like I've always said, and I defend, I like goal line technology, and I think the VAR was done right. It's done right when the referee doesn't have a say. It's just a yes-no answer in her ear. These are the good things about VAR and goal line technology. It's the other stuff that's a bit iffy for me.
Yep.
It sucks, like I say, but it's a fact. And
it's offside. I mean,
it was exactly like the US experience, and people complain about that one, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how close it is. If it's offside, it's offside, and I'm sure the US might see one of those in their final, and we understand these things happen. It's just, again, we talked about this roller coaster, and that was just step one of the emotional roller coaster, and at that moment, everything was England, and if that goal was in, England go on to win that, I think, because of the momentum that they had and the crushing for the US, and that's, again, what makes it such a hard loss as an English person.
Yeah, I would 100% agree. I think if they get that and they get to 2-2 and it goes to extra time, I think it's England's match. Let's get to the penalty. Both, I think a lot of people have talked about clear and obvious being a part of the decision, and it's not. It has nothing to do with it. It is or it isn't. On this one, it's a potential penalty, and it's going to get checked. Every potential penalty is going to get checked.
It just doesn't have to be a public VAR.
Right.
If it's clearly a penalty, they're not going to tell the ref, hey, VAR, but they're still looking at it.
Yep.
They're looking at every single play in that top room.
They're going to look. And you have to look at this, and when you looked at it initially, I'm like, oh, she missed. There's nothing there. Then they show the angle from behind, and you can see her right leg that she's trying to shoot with, she's hit in the calf, and it takes everything offline, everything out of whack. It's a penalty.
And there's a lot of people saying, yeah, it looks like a flop, but you have to, at that speed of game, when you've got your eye on taking that shot, any form of contact sends you flying and it sends you fumbling. And I tell you, I wish that contact hadn't happened because you fancy her as a poacher in front to nip that on. And, the penalty, again, didn't go our way. And, that's 3 missed penalties in a row, and that really freaking sucks.
It gets in your head. And
that's what we said.
And they changed it this time. It wasn't Paris who took it. It was Houghton. And it was a very poorly struck penalty. Now, Alyssa Nair guessed the right way. I think she did have to make a little bit of a reaction because it was such a poorly struck penalty.
I don't think she guessed what way. I think she could actually react to the strike because it was a slow rolling strike.
She had to get her right hand down because it was so slow rolling, and she's able to get it, make the big save.
I mean, it's a poor penalty when the goalkeeper holds it.
Yes.
And
absolutely.
What's so shocking and disappointing to me is I was happy when I saw Houghton step up.
Same. I thought that was the right person.
I was worried about Paris. I know she's already missed 2 penalties in a row. Houghton's the captain. We've seen her strike a freaking rocket of an indirect free kick. She scored harder shots than a penalty, and I would have put my money on it, and I was feeling pretty confident. And for her to miss in that way, at that point you just had to think as a Brit, is it really your day? And it didn't feel like it in that moment. And I wonder how much of a mental game it played into it when you know that you've changed penalty takers, when you know that England has missed 2 penalties before, when you know you're England. And again, look, we've won. The men's team have won 2 penalty shootouts in their last big tournaments, the Nations League for the 3rd place game and against Colombia in the World Cup.
Right.
But England is always going to have a reputation. It doesn't matter. And I've even had people saying, well, England misses penalties. And I'm like, hang on a minute. We've kind of broken that taboo, but we haven't, and we never will. And as an English person, we have it in our head. Even in adult leagues, I still get people, oh, you're going to take a penalty? It's a famous, but it does play in your head.
It does.
And I wonder whether the pressure got to her today. She wasn't having her best game.
No.
Neither of the centre-backs were. And again, we can't get into who should have taken it. Houghton was the right person in our minds.
That was the first person I thought of.
A lot of people are saying, what about Ellen White? But at the end of the day, we've said it before. The person who picks up the ball has to take the penalty. The person that wants to take the penalty, and she's the captain, she would have felt a responsibility to take it. And honestly, I'm almost glad it's her that missed, because I think she has the mental stability to get over it.
Yeah.
If that's Paris taking that penalty and missing a third one, I think she's done. Like,
cool.
that is almost a career-ending statistic for you.
Backbreaking.
And I don't know if anyone listened to on Fox, but England breaking the record for the most missed penalties in a female World Cup. The only team to ever miss 3 penalties in the Women's World Cup, and that's not a stat that goes in your favor.
No, that's not the one you want. It's like the Tim Howard saves record against Belgium. It's like, you really don't want that record. You get in the penalties, that's great. You're not converting them. If you guys have questions out there, we're live. Tweet at us at Soccer Down Here, at Jessica ATL UTD, at Longshoe. Let us know what you're thinking. For me, the biggest things coming out of this, one, England is a world power now. Like, I don't think there's any question about it. The way they played like a powerhouse. They played the U.S. They gave the U.S. the best game the U.S. has had, I don't know in how long. And they played
Since
it the right way.
Since they played in the She Believes Cup.
Yeah, and even that was kind of, you had some different lineups there. You had a Franch in goal there. You had some different things. This is, at this stage, in this type of tournament, I mean, England showed that they're a true contender now. And I love the approach that they played. They did not keep it simple. They didn't, betray who they are.
Okay, there were moments when I wish they had portrayed it. We take those risks at the back again. We got very lucky. Who missed where our goalkeeper played it straight to the forward?
I think Press had the miss.
And I mean, the US should have been 3-1 up in that moment. And that's when I was thinking,
that's the trade-off you make, though.
Yeah. We play a pretty style of soccer. I think we know who we are, which is the important thing. We know how we want to play. We know who we are. And the biggest thing that England has in its advantage now is the generations before, a lot of players had to go abroad to play. They had to move to America. They had to change their style of play. But for the first time ever, England has its professional leagues, and it's so important that we keep these developing and that we're going to have some consistency. It's going to be so much easier for Neville to select players that are all playing a similar style of play in the Super League, and that's where we're going to be an unstoppable force. And look, the US, they won today, but it was a battle, and we have to, tomorrow it's still going to be sore. People are going to be licking their wounds. It's going to be disappointing the way that it happened, but in 2007, we got our asses handed to us. It was a 3-0 loss, and people were celebrating almost in England, hey, we didn't get whooped 5-6-0. Finally, we're competing, and it's an incredible thing, and it's only going to get better as the league expands and we face more competition internally and more competition in our, regional games, our local games. And the US has some quality, but we said it and we said it again. They have to invest now because England's kind of throwing their card. Hey, look, we're throwing money in. Spain's saying, hey, we're throwing money. Italy, hey, we've got money.
The Netherlands.
And as Europe, I mean, 7 out of 8 teams, you can't complain about that. So it hurts.
I look at it in this tournament that the US played very even with Spain, slightly better. Outplayed France. France was a big disappointment in the tournament, and I think England outplayed the U.S. today, but the U.S. did enough to get through. How long does that type of way last? This is the first time I can really think of in a World Cup, probably since the final in 11, that I feel like the U.S. was really outplayed.
Yeah. But they've had challenge. What's been really interesting is they've had challenge ever since they exited the group. Spain. They had a challenge against Spain. France still tested them. England today, obviously the biggest challenge. But it's so refreshing now that teams are going into games against the US and not having to... It's one of those where in the past I think everyone's always respected the US. They haven't wanted to step to them. They haven't wanted to get stuck in because, oh my God, it's America. Oh my God, these are my idols.
Right.
For the first time, the teams are playing against the idols as well. Lucy Bronze is a household name in England and America. It was so cool that people were talking about, even in Hampton and Hudson, people were talking about the English players, knowing them, and we're in America. And it never used to be like that. It used to be that more people could name players in England, more people could name players on the US women's national team than their own national team. And that just is a sign of how much the game is catching up, because these players are worth talking about now. Yeah,
absolutely. We're starting to get some questions in. Our friend Kelly, who
checked on me, what an angel. She did text me and check I was okay. I said I'm not really sure because I really don't know how to feel. My heart hurts.
It's like you said, though. It would be different if it had been a 3-0 game. It was right there. Kelly asked about the U.S. and defensively what needs to change for them in the final. Some of it depends on who they're going to face, and that's tomorrow. We'll learn if it's either the Netherlands or Sweden. I feel like the Netherlands are a pretty big favorite here, and I feel like that front three of Van de Sanden, Medema, and Lieke Martens is a front three like the U.S. hasn't seen yet, and that's scary. That three against the U.S. back four is very scary.
It's a different style of play as well.
Yeah,
like England today is very wing orientated at times and the odd splitting pass, but they don't overload the front line as much.
Right.
You know, there's more time for the defense to get that shape, pick up runners in the box.
You got to build up to get the numbers forward.
Exactly. This is going to be a tough one because there's always going to be players up top, and you have to wonder, does that change the way the fullbacks play because they need to stay more and have more discipline?
Yeah, you have to really consider, do you need to play 5 in the back to start and match up your center backs, or do you need to play 4 but basically it's kind of a lopsided 4 where you want somebody free back there and the rest is a mark? Because if you're not accounting for Lieke Martens, you're dead. Van de Sanden's had a poor tournament, but you keep waiting for her to break out. And Medema, I mean, she's going to score goals. That's just what she does. If it's Sweden, I think Sweden's going to sit and do what they did in the Olympics and be more defensive.
And get very mad. Get the Americans very mad.
and Hope Solo might call them cowards again and all the stuff.
But you can't blame them because Sweden doesn't have the same attacking prevalence. They really need to hold it and maybe catch one on a counter. I think the Netherlands will play more like England in a fearless way. They're going to be less scared of the US and more reckless and taking risks. And risks sometimes pay off. And like I say, they almost paid off for England today. And, you know, 2 early-ish goals. But in the second half, England by far the strongest team.
Yeah, the US against the Netherlands, for me, they have to play into the other half and play over there as much as they can. That was something they struggled to do in this one. England had a decided possession advantage. They both had the same number of shots on goal. But that possession, I thought as the day went on, too, England grew into it more and more in possession and had it. I'll let you go with this one.
All right. Kevin Escobar on Twitter asked, do you think this is what England gets for beating Colombia in penalties? I mean, Colombia got beaten again on penalties in the Copa America, so I don't think it's just England that deserves this karma. No, penalties are a tough one. I think sometimes people really underestimate how tough it is to stand from 12 yards, take a shot, particularly in a moment like this. We talk about Pity Martinez's penalty. This was almost a similar pressure. It was towards the end of the game. Everyone's celebrating. You watched Daly for England almost celebrating like they'd scored a goal when they got awarded the penalty. There is so much pressure on the shoulders of these players, and you know you have the chance with one strike to change the game. That is a real tough one to mentally process, particularly, honestly, someone like Houghton that understands the momentous occasion. You know, she's someone that's already had years of experience and probably idolized the US herself, so she knew what this penalty meant. She's not one of the young and fearless players, so look, I don't ever wish anyone to miss a penalty, and that's the dead truth. As a goalkeeper, cool. I'm happy for Nair in some ways. We've been quite heavily critical of her throughout this tournament.
She was good today, too. She made a big save.
That's what I'm saying. She had the biggest and best game of her tournament. It's almost like she was trying to say, hey, Jess, this is for you being so critical of me. But I still think England should have tested her more with those dangerous balls in between the penalty spot and the 6-yard line. I think we missed a treat on those because the US has really struggled with those teasing balls, and we saw one going at the back post. But yeah, penalties suck. It's impossible, really.
There's been a lot of complaints about the referee stuff and the VAR stuff. I think the ref got it right. I thought she did a good job. The second yellow was correct. You had to go second yellow there. I think not going red on the penalty for Dogso, you have that flexibility now because they've eliminated the triple jeopardy, essentially. The penalty, the red card, and the future suspension. Now, if they're trying to play the ball, you can say that it's a yellow instead of a red.
So that's where the intentional foul almost comes in, that if it's not a cynical professional foul.
Right.
But for me, I still think, again, bias, I would have liked to have seen a red there, maybe because it was such a soft pen, potentially a very ambiguous one. they avoided that, but I think the red card for England really killed us towards the end, going 10 men down. So if the US had been on 10 men, potentially that wouldn't have had such an impact as sort of the last nail in the coffin for England.
Yeah, it's a completely different game if that goes red. I think it was correct. The offside, again, I mean, it's going to get checked. It is what it is. And the penalty, I think, was the right call. And I've seen a lot of fans say, like, oh, well, no, it's not clear and obvious.
Doesn't matter.
When it gets checked and you see that, it becomes clear and obvious. Like, it's clearly, there's contact. So it's an easy one.
Okay, so at JLeo110 says, overall, what do you see for the women's game moving forward? Very good today, and this Women's World Cup has been amazing. You've talked a lot about Europe's advances with professionalism, which is good. Jessica, you've also been in the huge NCAA system. Are they both good ways of development? Jason, I'll let you start with what's going to be for women's game moving forward.
I think what is grabbing a lot of people's attention right now are the TV ratings, the millions and millions of people in different countries that haven't historically watched the women's game showing up. And here in the US, the numbers are great as well, and it just keeps setting new and new records. That's going to attract investors. That's going to grow the professional game. And for me, that's the next step. I want this to go from, okay, we talk about Lucy Bronze, we talk about Vivian Miedema, we talk about Bonansea from Italy, we talk about them every 4 years. I want to know where they're playing their club games. I want to watch the Champions League in the women's game. I want to talk about NWSL. That's the next step. When it goes from being like an Olympic sport where it's every 4 years that it's a big deal and the circus blows in.
It needs to be a big deal every season.
Just like we do with the men.
And I think that we need to see more expansion in America of professional teams. I know people are scared of it. We've seen, this is round 3 of professional women's soccer in America. Yeah. We've seen some fails, but you have to take risks sometimes. And if the viewing figures for this tournament aren't enough evidence to show that people will come and watch, I don't know what is.
If you're pulling 6 to 8 million people watching on TV and you're pulling into a local restaurant on a Tuesday afternoon, a packed house, that tells you something.
It just doesn't make sense to me that a kid in Atlanta would have to go to Orlando to go watch a professional female soccer game. Or North Carolina. You have to go out of state.
Yeah.
It's not fair to me, and a country the size of America needs to have more teams, professional teams, in a country the size of England. It's baffling, and the MLS needs to kind of step up with its support of the female game. I know there's all of the controversy with the naming rights and all that jazz, but it's time we move forward and didn't come up with excuses. There's no excuses for this at this point.
The couple things I would do before I want to get your take on it. Soccer United Marketing needs to do the marketing for the NWSL. That needs to happen now. MLS taking over the NWSL, I don't know if you have to do that, but I think Don Garber has said it, and I would agree. Encouraging MLS owners to invest in the women's game is going to be an important thing, and it's going to take people like Paulson out in Portland, Hansen in Utah, who have had success on the business side with the women's game, because it has to go beyond being a cause.
Look, soccer is a money-making business. We can never deny that.
And it needs to be treated that way. And I think that would benefit the women's game as much as anything. So you start to add more teams, you start to get more conversation, you get on national TV, make it easier to watch. It's access. That's the number one thing that has to change.
So the second part of that question was obviously about NCAA. Now, I had a really interesting experience with it. I came from playing, with Reading, who was about to become a professional unit. Came over here because I wanted to combine the education and the soccer, which wasn't really something that was possible in England. But look, NCAA is cool. It's a fun idea. It's nice that you get an education, but when it comes to the actual soccer playing, it's not conducive to a professional environment because of the fact it's only half a season. It's half a year sport. You work your asses off all summer. You practice and train hard in preseason. Then you're playing Saturday and Wednesday for 8 weeks, and then it's over. It's not right for players, particularly in positions like a goalkeeper where only one player gets to start.
Right.
There's often 3 or 4 goalkeepers in college that will not touch the field for an entire calendar year, maybe an entire 4-year calendar. And For me, what the hardest thing with NCAA is, during that 8-week period, yes, it can be somewhat professional. You're practicing 2 days a week, you're eating well, but it's the off-season that is such a problem. You in your spring, you might play 2 friendlies, you're working in the weight room, and there's so much emphasis on what America has been stereotyped for so long in the NCAA, which is athleticism. You can't even touch the ball for a long period of spring because of the NCAA rules, and these sort of things need to change. There is no way that from January through March, I shouldn't touch a ball with my coach present. It's just nuts. And then the other thing with NCAA is the limited, well, there's 2 issues. Number one, the professionalism thing, that there's a lot of women now that have to make a choice between going to college and playing professionally. We saw, I believe it's Horan that made the choice, Haran made the choice to go and play pro and sort of, waived her eligibility. That's a problem.
Mallory Pugh did the same.
And that's not fair, one, because at the end of the day, with the way the women's game is, it's very rare that girls will be able to make a professional living at the same rate as if they have a degree with a professional career. So that's an issue. And the second issue is the support after the degree. With so few teams available in the States, once you graduate, there's very few options to go and continue playing. If I'd have been in England, if I'd go home right now, I could walk into a Super League 2 team. You know, whenever I go home, I go train. I go train with Luton Town. I talk to Tottenham Hotspur. There's so many teams that would be interested because there's more teams.
Right.
Here, if you're not in that top 1% to get in those 12, there's nowhere for you to go get seen. There's not the same linkage between the divisions, and that's an issue too, because players like myself end up sort of almost retiring. You know, I play in a friendly league, but I'm not going to the WPSL is an issue. It doesn't have the same support. You're expecting people to work a full-time job, train twice, drive to Nashville on the weekends. It just doesn't make sense. So NCAA needs to step up and make some changes, because more and more players are going to waive their eligibility and not give a crap about it. And what is a draft anymore, you know?
Yeah, it's a weird situation, because I think soccer is such a tough sport for the college game to be impactful in. You look at the college game when it comes to basketball or football, obviously the draft is a big deal, and it's where players develop is in college. In this, it doesn't really lend itself to it because of the season, because of the format of it, and you just don't have enough places to go. Like 9 professional teams in the United States is not enough.
And people will have to literally relocate in order to play. That's not fair. And then Jay just follows up saying, makes sense about the US. I wonder if Europe will come shopping. Europe's already coming shopping. We look at Sam Kerr. We'll use that as a great example. Chelsea offering Sam Kerr a $1 million, is it, or pounds?
£1 million.
£1 million over 2 years. That's £500,000 a year. And we say she hasn't accepted it yet, but there's no way she's not going to, really. I don't think. That money isn't invested in the US right now. There's no way they're matching contracts like that. Of course they're going to come shopping. There's already foreign players playing in England, playing in Europe. They're going to keep wanting to go there because they see that there is a professional lifestyle over there. There are more games to play. It's more fun. Let's be honest, it's way more fun when you have different cup competitions. You're playing different teams all the time.
You're playing in Champions League. You know, it's just so much to it right now. And you're going to see players start to leave. And you're going to see U.S. women's national team players start to leave.
And again, we talk about the importance of consistency for the players playing a style they want to play. If U.S. women's national teams go to Europe, their style is going to change.
Well, but see, that's the thing. That's the bigger picture for me with the U.S. is what is the style? There really isn't one. It's all about winning the one-to-one.
And having 4 or 5 superstars that kind of make up for a couple of players that maybe aren't good enough, but they're always...
Or who brings different things. Like right now, Crystal Dunn, as an attacking player, is outstanding. As a left back, she's a great hard worker, and she makes up a lot for not being a great defender because she can recover. Yeah, but as a defender, she's not a world-class defender, and these are the things that the U.S. doesn't have the style that Spain has, that England has, that the Netherlands have, that Germany has. They don't really have an identifiable style, and that's going to hurt you over time when you don't have that talent and athleticism gap that you do have right now.
So my dad, hello dad, up late. He actually missed the game. He booked tickets to the theater.
Oh no!
Well, that's an amateur error.
That is an amateur mistake.
He didn't have to experience the pain that I felt watching.
Also that's true.
He asked, should Nikita Paris have taken the penalty, and should Millie Bright have been selected to start based on performances up to today?
You go ahead on Bright.
We talked about her. She just needs to learn who she is as a player, and I'm not sure she fits into the style of play that Neville wants from her. Her passing play doesn't have that sort of repertoire. She doesn't have it in her for those down the middle passes or across the goal. And so one of two things has to happen. Neville has to give her the freedom to make her own decisions on the field rather than forcing her into this mindset of playing, or he has to switch her. And today it looked like neither happened. It looked like she knew she had to play it out the back, and she wasn't comfortable doing it. And she's great in the air. She's good at some one-on-one defending, but we saw today her being pulled out of position a few times. I think was it whoever megged her, that one's been made into a gift.
Lavelle.
Yeah, Lavelle's gift her for life, and Bright's going to have to recover from this one. I think she had a rocky tournament. I still don't doubt her quality, but it's a tough one.
The penalty. I don't think you could go back to Paris after missing two.
I don't think she wanted it.
No.
I don't think she's going to have wanted it. And what's
I want to see the replay to see what the reaction is.
Her first one is so good. Her first penalty of the tournament was a fantastic penalty, and it just all went downhill from her.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is every English player took the shot across their body and played it down that left-hand side. Every single penalty from England has been in that same spot, and maybe that played into there as well. You know what? They've taken every single penalty that way. Look, as I said, when I saw Houghton pick up that ball, I felt good. We've seen her strike the ball. She's got a rocket. She's great with free kicks. You'd expect her from 12 yards to take it, but like we say, I have an utmost respect for penalty takers. I think it takes a lot of nerve, particularly on a world stage like this, in a meaningful position like this. This isn't a penalty when England are 3-0 up.
No.
This is a penalty that needed to be scored, and it would have changed the game completely. She took a risk. It didn't pay off. We saw the young Canada player that missed the penalty as well. We know how heartbreaking that is, and I think I want to stop using the word miss, because you have to credit Nair with the save. And it's still a decent save. Look, it's not a good penalty, but she gets down, and it's a save.
You make the save, you take that and you move on. I don't know who else would have taken it. Houghton was the first person that came to mind for me. I think it was the right call.
You could say Ellen White, but if she doesn't, again, we say this, but you can't force someone to take a penalty. No. It's a unique skill. There are some of the best strikers in the world that can't take a penalty. It's not the same. Just because you can finish in front of goal on a rolling ball doesn't mean the dead ball is your favourite striking. So
I wonder if Neville will address that in post-match comments, or Houghton. I wonder if we'll get any comments about the penalty and the decision on who to take it.
And who made that decision.
Yeah.
Whether it was I'd like to know whether it was pre-planned.
Right.
Because I have a feeling they might have, usually you pick a penalty taker.
Because you'd at least have an idea of who your five are going to be if it goes to a shootout.
All right. Chiefs coach Steve says, Jessica, what change or changes would have led to a different result? I don't know if it's about changes. I think, like I say, the biggest change for me, I still don't understand the changing in Paris's position. Yeah. I really think that Dunn, again, was having a strong game, so maybe she would have handled Paris, but I think it would have tired her out. And towards the last 70 minutes of the game against a more tired Crystal Dunn, I would have fancied Bronze and Paris battering her on that right-hand side.
Right.
I think it would have also changed the way Bronze played. Bronze has been spectacular in this tournament. I don't think she had her best game.
They mentioned at one point, and we didn't get a replay of it on the feed, they mentioned, I think it was when Tobin Heath was down and both teams went over and grabbed water, that Bronze was down as well in the center circle. And I didn't hear it mentioned again in commentary. Don't know what the details were, but she might have been feeling it at that point. She really seemed to struggle at the end.
Okay, I'm pretty mad right now. Paysonin Naho has just posted a picture of Darren frickin' Eels celebrating with the US. I think he's at Rira, because that is Andrea Morris from
I was about to say, he's not photoshopped, so that is accurate.
I don't understand. We spoke at the tailgate. Darren said he's still English, that he's rooting for England. He said, my heart's telling me England, my head's telling me the US, and that man there is a traitor.
Oh, no.
And I'm disappointed. There's no celebrating that. Maybe I'll be cheering for the US potentially come the final, but that one hurts seeing that picture. I'm disappointed in that.
Oh, no.
All right, Matteo Andante says, what was your overall impression of Alyssa Nea in goal today?
Her best game. I think best game with the national team. She makes a big save in the run of play. She saves the penalty. Looked steady. Didn't really look nervous or anything.
We'll get to this one.
Yeah.
I tell you something. This gentleman, I literally warned Jason that there was going to be a tweet of these guys.
Oh boy, here we go.
But first, let's touch on that question.
Yeah,
from
I think
Matteo.
there was the best she's been with the national team today.
I think that we've given her a lot of stick over the period of this tournament before the tournament. I don't think that was too hard.
No.
I think she has been shaky throughout the tournament, both at her feet, in the air with crosses. We've never doubted that she's a good shot stopper. Most goalkeepers are. Most goalkeepers at this level will save shots. It's about everything else they do, from their positioning, their vocal commandment, their movement across the line, their footwork, all those things, particularly with crosses in the women's game, because goalkeepers are obviously shorter, they have to make up for stuff.
Right.
I really fancied England to put her under more pressure, but I also thought she wouldn't be able to handle the sort of delivery from England, and she did a fantastic job. As a goalkeeper, I'm happy for her to have a solid game. I think she needed that. Yeah. She's had a lot of stick, like I say, and as much as players will say they don't read it, I'm sure they hear about it. They know about it.
You know. Both goalkeepers were good. I mean, and there was a big surprise with the change in goal for England, but Telford was good as well.
Yeah, and but it's nice. That's one thing I am glad, because female goalkeeping has always been a decider in a lot of tournaments, and today it wasn't down to that. There was great goals, great finishing. Goalkeepers had good games. I think that Nea needs to now work on turning that into a consistent performance.
Yes.
It can't just be one big game against England. It has to be big games every single game, because that's what the US has had in Scurry and had in Hope Soda. They've always had a consistently fantastic goalkeeper. And as she consistently performs, if she keeps performing like this, we'll see a change in the way US defends, because their defenders will be more confident too. So
she has to make that number one shirt hers, and it almost is.
Okay, my buddy, my good friend Kevin from Charlotte, who has accused me on multiple times of whining about the US, he says, do you think the US was fortunate? Please give US credit. The focus is so much on England. Well, firstly, obviously coming from England, I do watch a game from a biased perspective. That's natural. When you watch a game that you support, you're always looking more at the way the English players play. I think the US played pretty well. I think they adapted well to the loss of Rapinoe. I think that was actually it ended up being a good thing for them. I thought Lavelle had a fantastic game. I was quite shocked when she got taken off, but then we did hear that it was due to a knock, so that explains that. I think that what the US did best today was they responded better to adversity. Against Spain, I think they didn't respond as well. Today, they did what they had to do. They parked the bus at times. There was some time wasting, with 12 minutes left on the clock. But you know what? They played their game and they did well. The finishing was nice. The goals were good. And it could have been really easy to lose focus towards the end, particularly with the way that England was on top of them with the penalty, with the goal given offside. And so, hands down, the US won the game. You can't necessarily say they're lucky. Do I think in different circumstances England could have been the winner? Absolutely I do. Do I think that England should have done better themselves? Do I think that England will look back and think they lost this game rather than the US won it? Potentially they do, because you know what? When you're handed a penalty with 12 minutes left in a game, you expect to get back into that game. I will be honest with you, Kevin. I think that had it gone to extra time, the US would have probably won due to the England going a man down. I think that would have been a real tough one with the minute break.
If they had gotten the goal after that, right?
Yes. So, you know what? Yeah, congrats to the US. I'm not a US hater. I love being here. I just think that the rest of the world is catching up, and the US does need to make some changes because the Olympics are coming up. That's going to be a bigger challenge than ever.
Mm-hmm. Now, here's how I feel about it. I think overall, in the quality of play, England was the better team today. I think the U.S. was better in the moments that they needed to be. Dahlkemper, again, with another outstanding ball out of the back, long diagonal. That opened up everything for the second goal. Great ball from Haran. Alex Morgan was just a beast again today, and it's so funny. I think for years we've looked at Alex Morgan as, you know, a glamour player, a goal scorer, not a whole lot else. She's been gritty in this tournament. She's been taking a beating. She's been playing as a true number 9, and I heard some conversation earlier about how Alex Morgan needs to be more of a goal threat in this one, or she shouldn't be playing. I think she gives you in this tournament so much more off the ball than she ever has.
She's a nitty-gritty player, and she was working back to recover so much today, and that was something that impressed me. I think Morgan has been quiet, but today she really showed some heart and some desire to get back.
The last 2 games for me, she's shown so much heart and just willingness to do the dirty work that I never really associated with her. So I thought Dahlkemper was good. I thought Morgan was good. Julie Ertz is Julie Ertz. I mean, you know what she's going to bring to the table at this point. Press with her speed added a lot. But the U.S. in the midfield really concerned me with how easy it was for England to play through. And you had a goal that was offside by a foot. It was offside. It was offside by a really close margin and a little lucky because you weren't trying to step up. And then you give away a penalty. The U.S. in a lot of ways is a little fortunate to get through this. So I do think it's a match where England should look back and feel like they had the opportunity to win it and they didn't take it.
Exactly, and the U.S. came up in the big moments. So they, you know, a big save by now changes the game. Kevin follows up with what type of tea was Alex drinking. I'm sure it was sweet tea because we don't have that nasty crap in England. That stuff is gross.
Oh, you've got to be kidding me.
Sweet tea, Jason.
That's what I was drinking during the game.
And I'm always disappointed watching you drinking it. It's some nasty stuff. I'm probably going to get in trouble.
I had a whole carafe of sweet tea brought to me here at Hampton and Hudson.
But like I said on Twitter, I don't drink tea, so it doesn't offend me.
That was a good celebration. That was funny.
There's been some crazy stuff from some crazy English people with some comparisons. I found the hamburger comparison funny, that if a Brit scores, they should eat a giant extra-sized hamburger. I also found
I don't know how you do that, though.
The NHS celebration funny. That, oh, well, here's your $30,000 hospital fee. But I do apologize. There were a couple of ones that were a little bit distasteful. That's not every English person's view. We're not all...
Oh, you're getting it on both sides. I mean, it's happening all over the place.
It's friendly banter, as we say, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, and that's what we wanted to do, was to talk about the actual game a little bit, because I felt like coming in, it was so much hotel gate, and then somebody in the tree spying, and we're yelling at Phil Neville because, I don't know, and it's just everybody yelling about stuff, not actually talking about the game. Look, this was a great match, and this was a great advertisement for the women's game. It was played at a very good pace. It was played at a very good level. It was an excellent match.
Yeah, it was. Getting some crap on Facebook now. What did you say on Saturday, says Danita Simmons. Look, I said that it was going to be a battle. I said it was going to be a tight game, and that it was. So I'm okay with that one. I'm feeling good about how it went, and I don't think England let themselves down.
AA Five Stripes said that Houghton took a look to the left as she was stepping up to take the penalty, and that Nair might have seen it. I didn't notice that. And she didn't look all that confident walking up to it.
She looked nervous.
I just don't know who else would have taken it. That's the thing. I mean, the only other one, honestly, I guess would have been White as your goal scorer, but I don't know her penalty record. You just couldn't go back to Paris because missing 2, I don't think you can go back for a third time.
All right, Nico Crocker says, would attacking phase of play have been considered for the penalty decision? I know it was a long way away, but it looks like possession started with a foul, and other than a single back pass, the team was making progress towards the goal.
I know at one point there was question about on the penalty that was given to England if there was an offside in it, and I didn't see that. I don't think they really focused on it on the broadcast. I'd have to go back and look at it. That didn't cross my mind, so I don't think so. But attacking phase of play, you go back to where they recovered the ball, whether they won it or if it deflects off the opposition, you still regain it and you keep the attacking phase of play. So you could, but that's where VAR can get really messy when you start going back too far into attacking
because
phase of play.
obviously it's always within, play is so back and forth. In a game like this too, the possession turned over so many times, and I think it would be a really tough call for the referee to decide whether they had waited too long.
Yeah, that was a big moment. I thought the ref handled it well. I mean, the offside one's an easy one because she's just waiting on an answer. This one, I thought she handled it really well because she did take her time to get it right, and she went and she looked at it a good bit. And it was tricky. I mean, looking at it straight on or from the side, you couldn't really see the contact as much, but looking at it from behind is where it looked clear to me. I think it was the right call. It's not about clear and obvious in that situation. Once you get that angle, you have to send it down for the on-field review if you're the VAR. And it was correct. I mean, ball don't lie is what everybody's going to yell. I think it was the right call, and it was a poorly taken penalty.
Yeah, and like we say, it was someone that we didn't expect to take a poor penalty. Her striking of the ball has been immaculate, but I'm going to reiterate it. I'm glad that it was Houghton that missed because I think she has the mental capabilities to deal with the miss.
All right, let's wrap it up. Tomorrow it's Netherlands and Sweden. I think the Dutch come in as a pretty clear favorite, and we'll see if Sweden can, I think, do what Sweden has done mostly in the tournament. Defend really well, very organized, and kind of wear opponents down. Sweden shocked me against Germany. I don't know if they have that type of performance in them back-to-back.
I think it's a tough one. They either respond in one or two ways. They use that as a motivation and push into an even bigger performance for this one, or they're just mentally drained. When we look at the last World Cup, 2015, that's kind of why USA had an easy run in the final.
Yes.
Because they were so exhausted, their opposition, from playing. So.
And that'll be interesting when we get to that final for the US. I think it will be the Dutch because I think they've shown a little more toughness, a little more mental toughness. They've been in a situation before. They won their last tournament. That does count for a lot. I think they're not going to be afraid of this big moment. And their stars have been performing. So we'll see what the game ends up playing like. And that's going to be the biggest thing about how it affects the final. Either team are going to come in, I think, with a little bit less of a stressful road to get here.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a tiring game. We talked about Cameroon being mentally draining for England. I think that was equally, I'll give the US credit, I think that was a mentally and physically draining game. England took them to the line, and it plays with their emotions just as much as England, because 1 minute they're thinking, oh my God, we're going to extra time, oh my God, they've scored, oh God. And I think that's going to be a tiring game for the US. They had a battle today, and like we said, they had a really easy start to the group, and now they sure haven't had an easy run in the knockout stages.
Not at all. So you've got depth, you've got questions about Rapinoe now with a strain. Is she going to be ready to turn it around for Sunday? Don't think you had any. Well, Lavelle, you have to take a look at her. Might have just been a knock. I think you're okay with everybody else, so it's just going to be fatigue and how you're managing it, how Morgan's feeling after taking another beating. You're going to get a game that you're going to be heavily favored in for the first time in a little while, because you've had 3 nail-biters. How does the U.S. handle that? How does the opposition handle it? It's going to be an interesting final.
We're all feeling kind of crazy here. I just paused. I don't know if anyone can tell. Like, I'm just exhausted. That was an exhausting game. I'm glad I could answer some questions. I appreciate that no one's really adding me too harshly and rubbing salt into the wounds, because at the end of the day, I think it was a great game, and I couldn't be prouder of England and the US. I think it was a really good, we've talked about it throughout the tournament, it's a great advertism for the female game, and this was a real quality game. And I tell you, I don't know about anyone else, but that first half felt like it was 10 minutes because it was so end-to-end and so exciting. So, hopefully the rest of the games will live up to it. I would like that the final wasn't a 3-4-0 game. I would like it to be an equal competition. I'm not sure. I think the US now is about to set the world on fire, but let's show whoever gets through the same respect as we've shown the other oppositions.
If it's the Dutch, they can score goals, and that would make for a pretty wild final. I think if it's Sweden, it would be a little defensive and cagey. If it's the Dutch, it would be very open and craziness.
I'm not ready for it to be over. That's for sure.
Same here.
I don't want this to be over, but like we say, now it's time to invest in the female game, and hopefully everyone has enjoyed the Women's World Cup. Will now turn their attention to the NWSL, the Women's Super League. There's plenty of female soccer out there. You've seen the value of it, and now's the time to watch.
Yeah, if you want to keep up with these players, follow where they play their club game, where their club games are available. A lot of it's actually available for free. You just got to look for it a little bit. We'll try to keep spreading the word and keep you up to date with big games that are coming up that you can watch on YouTube or on streaming services or whatever. NWSL's on Yahoo for free, for example. So we'll be on air tomorrow with our recorded Soccer Down Here show, with John talking to Doug, to Joe Patrick, to Felipe Cardenas, to Chris Furmeister, getting ready for Atlanta and Chicago. Mike Conti and I will be live in Chicago around lunchtime with a Wall Pass Wednesday Q&A. So if you have any more questions about this match today, throw them at us. We'll talk about it tomorrow. And then Thursday we won't have a show because it's the 4th of July. We'll be traveling back. We'll be back for a normal Soccer Down Here show on Friday morning where we'll talk about the second semi, we'll look ahead to the final, and get ready for a rather large viewing party at Mercedes-Benz Stadium for the final on Sunday. That's going to be kind of cool.
I'm not sure if I can go watch it.
I know. I'm sorry.
Hey, well, let's get the third place at least.
They'll be back. They'll be back.
You know what? The one thing that I want England to cling on to is Ellen White. We talked about, she's tied for the Golden Boot right now. That would be a real achievement for her and for England in the third place game. So that's what I'm holding out for. That'd be a nice one.
Yeah, we'll talk about it on Friday, Golden Boot race and the Golden Ball race, because I have no idea who your leader is for the Golden Ball right now.
What is Golden Ball?
The player of the tournament. Because usually it comes from one of the semifinalists, and
it would have been Lucy Bronze if she hadn't had a weak performance today. But I think she's out. Nikita Paris, we're talking England again, is out because of her penalties.
Rapinoe,
but now she hasn't played in this one. Morgan hasn't been herself in all her games.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough
over
call.
The last two games, it's done. I tell you something.
It's a really tough call. I mean, it could be one of the players from the Netherlands if they step up with a big game tomorrow. It could be Medema. It could be Martins. I think both of them would be in the running for it. So we'll catch up on all that on Friday. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Thanks for tweeting at us. Yes, thank you, everybody.
Keep tweeting. We'll answer some more online.
That's what we do.
Keep them friendly, please.
Please. Thanks, everybody.